Mr. Agabaje, reminds us of what the regions were doing at that point in time. You talked about agriculture. Last guest, Mr. Shopito, actually talked about one other issue which you talked about, that the issue of power supply. But away from power supply, which everyone has always talked about. Now, let's look at what the regions were doing at that point in time. The northern region, the groundnut pyramids, and of course the cocoa for the western region and the likes. Are you saying that if we go back to the lands, which you talked about, is it likely to help us in all of this, drive the economy? For instance, they say the investment profile has dropped drastically from the first half of 2010.
That's in manufacturing.
Yes, which is not too good a story. So if we went into agriculture as we speak now and say, let's see how this can complement the manufacturing sector and other sectors of our national life, how will that help?
What we need, you know, economies proceed in a certain cycle. Unfortunately, ours has not even started that process because it has been the cycle has been aborted, and we have to start all over again. Economies usually start from primary activities. So if you look at most economies in the world, maybe in the 1920s, the developed economies, their primary activity was agriculture, mining. Primary activities.
But we've been there.
Then they develop. I'm going to repeat the Nigerian thing. They develop, link all of those primary activities into manufacturing. So it becomes an industrial economy. Then they grow very fast and create jobs through industrialization. Then it moves into a service industry, a service economy. Then you begin to see financial services, professional services, tourism, those things. Transportation, communications, then it moves at some point into maybe an innovation or knowledge economy, and you begin to see things like IT, ICT, innovation, patents, and all of that. Nigeria started the agriculture one, then went into industrialization, but now we had a period of deindustrialization. Unfortunately, because we had oil, we abandoned both industry and agriculture. So we need to, in my view, to restart the process. And the point at which we should start is to modernize agriculture, to create a modern agricultural economy, and then to relink it to manufacturing so that the value chain, so you produce, or mining as well. We need to go back to mining because the resources, mineral resources are there. They have not been exploited. But then this time, to link it into the industrial economy and field agriculture into manufacturing, and so that you will create jobs, food processing, agro-allied, all of those things. Create a mining base that will also feed into manufacturing, and then we can begin to have a rational progression of economic of our economic structure. Create jobs, develop our services. We don't have to wait, of course, to develop service and innovation and all of that. Build the financial services, build transportation, build all of those things that can create jobs. It's because the planning and economic thinking in Nigeria was distorted by the abundance or the perception of the abundance of oil.
Now, I'd like us to see if we
so
can
we deindustrialize, and we now have to start
in all of this. Now, let's see if we can, if you can break it down to the extent that everyone will understand. Let's look at the budget proper now. You just talked about all of this, and all this sector you mentioned, we all have key ministries, agencies, and even parastatals and departments for all of them. Agric ministry, and even mines and natural resources, they all have them. And we see monies yearly budgeted for these years, allocated to all of them. So how come that these monies don't even translate into such development you talked about?
The problem is what political economists call the prebendal economy that we've developed. It's a distributive economy. Nobody, at least not on the side of government, is focused on generating production. If you listen, even it reflects in the way we speak. If you listen to the average minister, and I'm happy that, for instance, you spoke about agriculture. I love the things I'm hearing from the new agriculture minister. I think he understands the issues. I think he's going to, hopefully, if we give him time and we give him political support and all of that, he's going to oversee, hopefully, a transformation of that sector into what we want to see. I've always been a fan of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. I think she also understands the issues. I think all we need is people who understand that their role is not to share in federal allocation. The role as a minister is not to share, they will share in it, but to facilitate the development of the sector they are charged with. So I saw the Minister of Steel, for instance, say privatization has failed in my sector, so that we should own all of them, government back, and then we can be sharing the money. That's not what we want. The role of a Minister of Steel is the ministry is called Steel Development. You know, it's not a ministry of salary and wages and allocations. So your role as Minister of Agriculture, as Minister of Transportation, as Minister of Economic Development is to facilitate the development of that sector. In my view, mostly using the private sector. Your role is to create policies, ideas, incentives, motivations to fast track that process.
Hold on there.
Attract investment into the sector.
In the creation
get the
of
right
this
investment climate, investment environment. But that's not often the understanding of our policy drivers.
With these ministers, each minister running to drive his own angle of the entire economy, don't you think that would be dissipating energy, so to speak? Assuming we step back a minute here and say, okay, let's do one thing. Let's take power. If we focus on agriculture, we'll still come back to the issue of no power.
No.
As we said, start from the agricultural sector, transit into manufacturing. But no power.
Yeah.
So, supposing, why shouldn't we just take one thing and focus on it and get it done? As some will say, get power, you get everything. Or get roads and get everything.
I don't think governments can afford to say, we will only do this thing. I think governments have the capacity, by its nature and by its structure, to do many things. What needs to happen is the harmonization so that the synergy between what you're doing in power and what you're doing in transportation and what you're doing in industrialization and all of those things. Which is why governments create economic teams, so that you can have an integrated planning, thinking, so that we all know, okay, I'm trying to do this, she's trying to do this, it links in this manner, and we create a geometrical progression for our people. That's the function of the cabinet. That's the function of the economic team. That's why you have the National Council of State, so that what the state is planning integrates into what the federal is doing. That's why you have the National Economic Council, all of those things. I think that there's a potential, again, if there is consensus, there's a potential for this current economic team, and we've seen it before, even between 2003 and 2006. There's a potential for the economic team to get that kind of synergy going, where the agriculture man is saying, this is what I want to do, and this is how it feeds into trade and investments. And the Minister of Trade and Investment, and they're working together, and the finance person is saying, all of these things will not work if we don't have an investment climate that attracts investment. And the man in power understands that man who is trying to generate agricultural activity and linking it into industrialization needs power to make it work. So that potential for synergy and policy harmonization.
Okay.